I'd like to go ahead and start real quick before I go ahead and officially call the meeting to order. I'd like to thank all of you for being able to come out here today. It's the first big meeting of the semester, so thank you for coming out so early. I'm glad to see all of you here. With Sunshine, I'd like to extend a big thank you for being able to come out here this early. I'd also like to go ahead and give Student Life a quick thank you for allowing us the usage of this room. So I'd also like to thank them for the accommodations. I'm going to go ahead and begin by calling the meeting to order. So, the meeting is now called to order. So we're going to go ahead and start. If I can ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We don't have a flag, so any direction kind of works out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could all please remain standing for the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. Thank you. And now I'm going to go ahead and cede the floor over to our Vice President, Ms. Deja Higgins. She is off camera for those viewing the video. She's going to go ahead and call roll of our officers and all our club groups.
Okay. Kenneth Gonzalez, President.
Yes, President.
Deja Higgins, Vice President. Here. Tanja Honey. Here. Maricela Vargas. Here. And I think that's it. Yes. Oh my God. Sheila Rodriguez, Monte Capua. Here. There we go. Back up, please.
Okay, and if you could go ahead and please note that all our other club reps and officers are either absent or tardy. I'm going to go ahead and I believe that of all our active members, I believe that does constitute a quorum, so about 2/3, so we can go ahead and officially take votes. So I'm going to go ahead and first up, let me go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker. Mr. Brian Sunshine. He is the CTC's Director of Government and Community Relations. He has been the Director of Government and Community Relations here at CTC for the past 2.5 years and brings 25 years of experience representing publicly traded, privately held, and non-for-profit higher education finance organizations to legislators, regulators, industry leaders, and trade associations. Originally from Denver, Sunshine holds an MBA and a BS in business from the University of Colorado. His wife Julie is an educator at Ellison High School, and they have 4 children. He thoroughly enjoys writing and spending long weekends on the Texas coast. If you can all please go ahead and give a hand to Mr. Sunshine. We'll go ahead and let you have
Thank you. Can I walk? How far can I go? Around here?
No, a little bit from. There, right there.
Oh, okay. Good morning. I'm Brian Sunshine. For those of you who don't know me, that is my real last name. It's an Ellis Island thing when my grandparents came over the border. So, as Kenneth mentioned, that was through Ellis Island like many years ago. I've been in the legislative arena for a long time, 30 years. And for those of you who are newer students, you probably even may not remember that student loans used to be made by banks. Do you remember that? So have you heard of Sallie Mae? No? You haven't heard of Sallie Mae? Oh, okay. Well, don't blame me. But that's how I got my start. I worked for a company called Unipag in Denver, which is where I'm from. And I started in internal audit. I was an internal auditor, and I would coordinate all of the external audits for the organization. So that meant that I was dealing with state regulators and federal regulators, and it was all very back end. But I liked dealing with these people. I loved relationship building. And that's what government associations and government affairs are all about. It's all about networking. It's all about relationships. So I always say, if you're not an engineer, the most you can do for yourself as you move forward in life is build a network of people that will support you. And government relations plays very well into that. So I went from my role in internal audit, which is a back-end process, to a job opened up in policy as a senior policy advisor for the same company, Unipag. And I got the job, and I started working on the front end with policymakers. And I was 28 years old at the time, and very intimidated because there were a lot of people throughout the nation. I was going to these conferences. I didn't know anybody. These people were very well seasoned. They were very knowledgeable. And so I decided I want to learn from them. I want to learn from them. I want to build relationships with them. So every conference I went to, they'd have the program, and they would have a list of people in the back of all the attendees. And my goal was to meet as many people as possible, even if it was just to say hello and establish a rapport with these people. And then have those people introduce me to other people. And it worked very, very well. Every conference I went to, I was highlighting more names in the back, and by 1997, 1998, I knew practically everybody in the room. And it helped me. It helped me influence policy for the student loan providers. It's a very difficult message to sell because student loan providers are typically for-profit institutions. They make money, this is what some people say, they make money off of the backs of students. And so it's a very difficult message to sell. I did it for 25 years. But at the same time, for most students, Sallie Mae and Unipac and Lone Star, who I also work for, that's the nonprofit I work for, they're capital providers that enable students to go to school to begin with. And the government at the time was not willing to provide the capital to make the loans so that students could go to school. And the interest rate was a bargain. I mean, so it wasn't like students were paying outrageous interest rates like they do when you go to get a payday loan down at the mall. But nevertheless, it's a very difficult message to sell. So fast forward to 2009, and kind of why I'm here. 2009, y'all remember the Affordable Care Act, right? Obamacare, all that. There was a subset within Obamacare that nationalized the student loan programs. And Bill Clinton tried to do this when he was president back in 93, 94, and it never got any traction. So it went away for a long, long time. In 2009, the Affordable Care Act passed, and there was a provision that nationalized the student loan program so that the U.S. Treasury would be the capital provider for all student loans going forward. So if you were a student loan provider before, Sallie Mae, Unipac, which became known then, you became a federal contractor. So my role in 2009 going forward when I was working at Nelnet was to basically wind down a dying program because we still had all these loans on the books. It was new loans only. And so I had to manage the relationships of the wind down, knowing that someday I would be out of a job. And that was fine because I did not want to, everything I had done had been front-end policy driven. I was not interested in managing a contract relationship with the Department of Education and whether or not we were fulfilling the terms and conditions of that contract. That's not who I am. There's no networking or relationship building. That's calling somebody in an office in Washington, D.C., and they're whining about something they're not getting, and you try to fix the issue, and it's that over and over again. So in 2013, I find myself really out of a job. I could have either moved to Lincoln, Nebraska, and continue doing this after the program wind down, become part of this government contracting organization, or I could try something new. My phone was falling off in my pocket. And that's what brought me here. I had a former employee, speaking of networking, she still works here in records and registration, and she called me out of the blue, and I wasn't really looking, I was still sort of recovering from not being employed at the time, even though I was president of another nonprofit. And she said, Brian, I think I found the perfect job for you. And it was the job I currently have at CTC, or Government and Community Relations. And so I applied, I got the job. There was a bunch of turmoil when I first got here, and I didn't realize the politics at Central Texas College, but I believed in the mission. And that's the other thing, that if you're going to be in government relations capacity or student government, it's very important to believe in what you do. I get calls from time to time from oil and gas companies, healthcare, all these different companies asking me if I'm interested in providing them government relations services. Well, the short answer is not really, because that's not where my passion lies. My passion lies in education, first as a student loan provider, and now as an advocate for the community college mission and for what Central Texas College does. And it's a great mission. It is such an easier sell than student loans. I cannot tell you. And it sells itself. You just need a voice to talk about all the great things that you do, that we do here at the college. For the military, for our students, for our region, for our community. I mean, it's a piece of cake, and it's something that I truly believe in. But it all started with an internal auditor in 1988 in Denver, Colorado. And I took that job because I didn't have a car, and Unipac was across the street from where I lived. So it's funny how things worked out. I was 23 years old. I was working in the mortgage industry when the real estate market was completely bottoming out because of the S&L crisis. And I had these dreams of being, a Donald Trump of real estate. I wanted to be a commercial real estate broker, and it just didn't pan out. I got laid off of job after job after job when interest rates would go up. And I just graduated from college, like I said. I didn't have a car. I'm like, oh, student loans, well, that's stable. Kids are always going to need loans. And that's how I got to where I am today. So I do want to mention that we have in February, there's not a firm date yet, but we did it 2 years ago. It was really, really cool. Legislative Day at the Capitol. Hi, Roxanne. Hi. And that's in February. And we brought last year, or 2 years ago, and the legislature will be in session. And last time what we did is we met individually with Jimmy Don Aycock and with Molly White. And we had a scheduled meeting with Senator Troy Frazier, but he always blows me off, and so he wasn't available. But it's a nice experience just to walk around the Capitol when it's in session and get to know your state representatives, your state senators, their staffs. It's really cool to be down at the Capitol during session. Matter of fact, and in my role, you have to be kind of nonpartisan. At home, you can be as partisan as you want, but you have to deal with people every day that you don't necessarily agree with. But you have to remember in the back of your mind, I'm not selling my ideas, I'm selling the community college mission. So I'm here to represent Central Texas College. So when I go into Molly White's office, which was yesterday, by the way, we don't talk about her social issues. We talk about the college. I went in to tell her that if you're getting calls from your constituents from ITT, that were going to school at ITT, which shut down the day before yesterday, have them call Central Texas College. This is who they call, this is what we do, we'll evaluate their transfer credits to see if we can get them to complete their program of study. Easy message. I was in and out in 10 minutes. By the way, she's not being reelected, and I found out she's writing a book on her challenges in her one term as a state legislator. So, and the cool thing was, and again, we don't see eye to eye on policy issues, but I was at my desk in my office in May of 2015, 15, and she called me from the House floor. It was Molly White, asking me how she should vote on a bill. And I was like, wow, I'm getting a call from somebody on the House floor. And it was a no-brainer, and it was State Representative Wu's bill, and I don't even remember what the bill was. But I was like so touched that a representative called me to get my opinion on how to vote on a bill. And that was very cool. And then one last thing I'll leave you with is there was another bill in the last legislative session. I really never did this before, but I was able to shepherd a bill that had stalled. It had passed through a House committee, it was stalled in the Senate, it wasn't going anywhere, and as you know, in the state legislature, 75% of bills die. I mean, that's what happens. Bills are written to die. And this particular bill allowed us to expand to Gillespie County, where Fredericksburg is, so that would expand our footprint from 11 to 12 counties, and our service area is actually 10,000 square miles. But I was able to work with some folks and get that bill moving along and it got signed by the governor, and it got enacted, and we got our 12th county. So that was pretty exciting too, to see a bill that you've been able to babysit and prod along and talk to people and make sure that it's moving, and then boom, it gets enacted into law. So I'm pleased that y'all are interested in student government. Hopefully it'll lead to great things, and it's all about relationship building and networking. I think that's, am I out of time? Questions, concerns? Hold on, let me see if I have everything on my list here. I think I covered it. Any questions?
Take your time, you're doing such a great job.
Oh,
Learned a lot about
Roxanne,
you.
you're so kind. And it's also about community involvement, and Roxanne's going to talk about that, but I can't emphasize enough. It's one thing to go into somebody's office and want things all the time. That's what lobbyists do. But you have more credibility if you're engaged in your community, if they see you in the community. And it's not all about what I want or what the college wants. It's about the betterment of the community. It's about being authentic. And there are so many places you can go and so many things you can learn. I mean, the City of Killeen council meetings are on the web live every other Tuesday, and they're open to the public, and it's a very cool thing. Or, you know, school board meetings, it's very neat to be part of that process at the local level. It's dry sometimes, but every once in a while you get a little surprise. Well, Killeen's been having a bunch of surprises lately. A lot of fireworks, a lot of controversy, a lot of conflict, but it truly does all start at the local level. And it's amazing when you start going to school board meetings and city council meetings and Central Texas Council of Government meetings, how interconnected we all are at Bell County, the Bell County Commissioners, and it's important to know all these people and their staffers if you want to pursue a career in community affairs, legislative affairs, external relations, even marketing. Very, very important. Questions? That it? Nothing? Come on. Legislative Day at the Capitol in February. Sound exciting?
Yes.
It is really, really neat. These are community colleges from all over the state, the convergent capital. So it's actually Community College Day at the Capitol. So there are, just a little background, sorry, I'll keep going for a second. There are, and if you're interested in reading about what the law that governs community colleges, it's in the education code. It's either Title 53 or, I think it's 53 or 57. But there are, in the state of Texas, there are 50 community college districts carved out throughout the state, and we all have areas of responsibility. Ours is one of the largest areas at 10,000 square miles. I mean, you look at 12 counties, and some of these counties you probably haven't even heard of, but you know, McCulloch County, Mason County, Hamilton, Mills County, we've got all these counties with like 3 people in them. So our geographic expanse is very impressive until you realize that nobody lives there. Well, we focus on the geography because it is that impressive. But we do have Killeen, and we do have Copperas Cove, and the ISDs of Killeen and Copperas Cove are taxing districts. So those are the ones that pay taxes that allow us to do what we do. And those that live in the taxing district receive the benefit of the $76 an hour, per credit hour tuition. If you live out of the district, you get a little more, and if you live out of the service area, you pay even more. So that's how it works. Okay. Am I done?
Let's see if I have any questions for him. No, not yet.
Thank you for having me. I'll come back anytime.
Mr. Sunshine, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, so again, thank you, Mr. Sunshine, for coming out and being able to speak with us today. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our volunteer presentation. It's being delivered today by Ms. Roxanne Flores-Ahmad. She is the Director of Volunteer Services for the City of Killeen. And I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction for her. Roxanne Flores-Ahmad was born in California and traveled the world as a child due to her father being in the Army. Her parents retired in Killeen, Texas, where she was in high school, and she graduated from Ellison High School in Killeen. She graduated from Texas Women's University with a degree in business administration and has worked for the city of Killeen for over 21 years. She has worked for several departments within the city of Killeen: human resources, library, and volunteer services. And I know this for a fact because she was at my interview when I got hired. Volunteer services is where she realized her calling and the changes she could make in the community. Roxanne is married to a husband, and I do apologize if I butcher this, Shahi, and has 3 children. Her son Devin is a senior at Harker Heights High School. Her daughter Olivia, a sophomore at the Early College High School, and a daughter Shiloh, who is 3 years old and full of energy. Roxanne is a member of St. Joseph Catholic Church and actively volunteers with Girl Scouts, Friends of the Library, and KISD Special Olympics. In her free time, she enjoys volunteering, shopping, and spending time with her family. Go ahead and please give a warm welcome for Ms. Roxanne. Volunteers in today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Well, good morning. How are all of you here? I was listening to the bio, and the one thing that is not included in the bio that I tell everybody that I'm proud of is I actually graduated from CTC as well. So it was a 2-year plan that turned into about 4 years, but I did it, and I was super excited. And I remember when I did graduate over at the Bell County Expo Center, I remember my friends were like, we're not gonna walk. I walked because I earned it, and I was extremely proud because I worked full-time, I was a mom, and I attended classes. And so for me, that was a high achievement. It also was an achievement for myself as well, because then I knew that I wanted to continue and pursue my higher education and continue going into school. So CTC gave me that platform that I realized that I actually wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to do school, and while I was in CTC, I was immersed in it. I was a tutor, I did everything, I joined the clubs. I enjoyed CTC, and that's why at one point my counselor said, you know, you have enough hours to graduate. And I'm like, yeah, I need to graduate. But I enjoyed it. I took classes. My favorite class I remember was, I loved the gym. I remember when the gym first opened, and I was walking around here, and it was kind of deja vu because I remember this used to be the bookstore. And so I always highly, highly recommend CTC to all my friends, and especially to those that have children. It's the best thing in town. It is. Back to what I'm here to talk about, though, is I am the Director of Volunteer Services for the City of Killeen. I enjoy it. I love what I do. There's not a day, I tell people expect the unexpected. The other thing I tell people is you have to wear several hats, and you have to know when to take that hat off and when to put another one on. Some of the committees that I oversee with Director of Volunteer Services is we're going to pass around, she has a brochure, it's a red brochure. It talks about the different committees that I oversee within volunteer services. You can pass that red booklet out. We have Killeen Volunteers, Inc., which is the main board, that's our nonprofit. And that agency, and we'll go ahead and pass it out so you can follow along. Pass those out, thank you. That particular agency, they have a separate nonprofit. So on that particular one, we actually I got to learn about how to run a nonprofit, all the tax information, and just what they do is they're the governing body for all the other program committees. KVI, if you're on KVI like Brian Sunshine is, we're excited to have him.
Oh, pleasure.
Yes, before him we had Jim Yiannopoulos, so we've had a great group for KVI. That group, they're actually a volunteer board. And the running joke is they control the money. The money for KVI does come to that program agency, and what they do is they distribute amongst the other program committees. KVI meets once a month. They meet on the 4th Tuesday of each month at 11:30, and it's at the Killeen Community Center. But KVI is appointed by the City Council. Every 2 years, they're on a 2-year term, and so they're appointed by the City Council. Anybody that can join it, as long as there's vacancies. That particular board, it's basically, there has to be a vacancy. Once there's a vacancy, you apply through the city's website, killeentexas.gov, you apply, and you're able to get on. And right now, I'll be honest with you, there's a waiting list because KVI does a lot of wonderful things in the community. Speaking of the things they do in the community, there's 2. They do Make a Difference Day, and they do Volunteer Appreciation Week. Make a Difference Day, does anyone here know what that is? It's okay if you don't. Make a Difference Day is basically a day of volunteering. What it is we encourage you to go out as a family, as a group, with your friends. You go out and volunteer, and we're hoping that you'll make a difference in someone's life. What we do is we have all the local nonprofits, we network with them, we ask them for their wish list of things. Maybe they've had a kitchen that they want to clean, but they haven't had enough time, they don't have volunteers. Maybe they have a fence that they want built. And so what we do is they submit their list. We had a kickoff meeting last night, and we had a huge attendance. Those agencies send us a list. Now you as a volunteer can actually adopt those projects. It doesn't require any money, it just requires your time. And your time is a valuable resource. A lot of people don't realize that, but your time is a very valuable resource, and it's how you give it and share it within the community. So what happens is, you can go to our city's website, KillingTexas.gov. Under there's a search engine for departments, search for volunteer services. That's where you'll find the Make a Difference Day information. You go in there, you just register as a volunteer. I'm all about making it easy for everyone, so everything's online. Just go in there, you fill out a few questions, it takes probably 2 minutes. I hate those surveys or those questionnaires where it takes 20 minutes just to get like 2 questions really answered. I made it simple, that takes less than 2 minutes, I've actually timed it. You fill it out and say, hey, I'd like to adopt a project. As soon as you send it, then we'll send you an email. Because I know some of you have ever emailed people like, did they get it? Did they not get it? What is the status? And so we send you a confirmation email. You get that confirmation email, then we'll send you the list. And the reason it's important that we send you the list, and it's a real-time list, is because I know a lot of you are busy, and when you look at that information, you want to know what projects have not been adopted. In the past, people would look at that list, and then by the time they came to us and say, hey, I'd like to adopt this project. I'd like to adopt maybe families in crisis. I see that they have a need. What was occurring is that we already had 10 people that had adopted it. Now it's a real-time list, so you can look at it, you can change your mind, you can decide this is a project that I like to do. It's going to be on October 22nd, and so you can come out. We start off at the Killeen Community Center. The mayor of Killeen does a proclamation, great photo op. We enjoy all of you coming out. We'll start off that morning. We'll have t-shirts to all the attendees. We actually give them to the first 100, so it encourages you to get up, but also we're excited that you're up volunteering. We do a mayor does a proclamation photo, then everyone goes to that nonprofit that they've adopted, and you do the work there. And you can stay as long as you like, but we encourage everyone to be done by 11 a.m. And then you can come back to the community center, and what we do is we have a local food vendor that sponsors us a lunch for all of you. It's our way of thanking you for taking your time out of your Saturday and coming out and giving back to those communities. The hope is, once you've made that difference in someone's life, that you'll continue making that difference throughout the year in volunteering. And that's what I want to talk about, is the different volunteer opportunities. We talked about KBI. The other program committee that we have is Keep Killeen Beautiful. Have any of you ever heard of Keep Killeen Beautiful? She has some flyers that she's going to pass out. Keep Killeen Beautiful has a waterway cleanup coming up soon. Another way you can volunteer. We're going to be cleaning the waterway at Long Branch Park. Starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, and from there we'll just start cleaning up. We provide all the supplies, and it's free. You don't have to spend any resources out of your own pocket. Like I said, the only thing required is your time. We tell people, you come and go. It's a come and go event. If you want to come for 5 minutes, hey, I have 20 minutes. We've had people come where they on their way to an appointment. That's fine. You can come out and volunteer for a little bit. It works within your schedule. We provide all the supplies, and then afterwards, we're usually done by 10 or 10:30. Afterwards, we just have hamburgers and hot dogs for all the attendees. It's a great way to clean up and to volunteer. Bring the family members. All volunteers are welcome of all ages. We have them as young as 2 years old. Sometimes it's really cute to see them with their safety vest because the vest is bigger than the child. But it's great because they're out there volunteering and they're starting them off young. We have them as old as 90. So the main thing is a great way you can volunteer, and it doesn't cost you a thing. What we're going to do, and we have an awesome president. Our president for Keep Killeen Beautiful is Mr. Colin Wilson, is also the president for our Killeen Volunteers, Inc. And he's very passionate about volunteering. It's in his blood. And I tell you something, when you come out, even if you're not motivated, just being around him, he will completely motivate you because he loves Keep Killeen Beautiful and KVI and just the difference that they can make in the community. That group also has actually openings. They meet, they have a meeting coming up. They meet on the third Thursday of each month at 11:30. We actually meet at the community center. So if you're interested in getting involved with that group, come out to our meetings. I'm okay if you come out and say, maybe you're not, maybe this is the thing, come out and just visit us. That one, they're not appointed by the city council, it's an open application process. So you can apply as a general member, and as soon as a board of director position comes in, then you can go ahead and apply for that. I will tell you that we do have a board of director position open right now. And so there's positions open, so come out. We have actually, every year we have a CTC student that gets involved with that, and then they take that information back to your Enactus group. And so we've worked a lot with those two groups. That student just graduated recently, so we don't have a CTC rep. So it'd be nice to see someone from CTC to get involved, because then they do a lot of stuff, KKB, and so then they're able to take it back to the agencies and the groups that they're a part of to get them involved. So come out and visit us. We won't scare you. We'd love to see you. And like I said, they meet on the third Thursday of each month, and they have a meeting coming up. And that information also is included in the booklet about KKB. They do trash off. They do great things. So get involved with that group. The other group that we're going to talk about is Celebrate Clean Festival. How many of you ever gone to our parades? Have you seen the Christmas parade? We do that. And a lot of people don't realize that's put on by volunteers. Our volunteer group of Celebrate Clean does the Christmas parade. The other thing they do is the Celebrate Clean Festival. How many of you have ever gone to that? They do those two events, yes. And then the other one they do, which I enjoy a lot, a subcommittee of Celebrate, is the rodeo. I love the rodeo. I never went to a rodeo, I'll be honest, until I started working here, and then I'm like, what? I've never gone to a rodeo, and I love it, so I embraced it. They're getting ready to have the 70th annual rodeo. That will be in May, and so that's another volunteer group. Celebrate Clean, they meet on the third Wednesday of each month at 9 o'clock in the morning. They do have vacancies as well, so that's another group if you like to get involved with. I said they do the parade, they do the Holiday Under the Stars, which is actually the first weekend in December. And this year we're going to do something really cool. Holiday Under the Stars is when they do the Christmas tree lighting, when Santa comes on the fire truck. All of these activities are free, and we provide them free to the public, but a lot of people don't realize that volunteers do all the planning. Volunteers do the executing. I work as a staff liaison between the volunteer and I work for the city of Killeen, but I'm there to help and guide those volunteers. But the volunteers do the work, and I'm like, I know my role. Like I told you earlier, you put that hat on. I'm like, they're like, we need this. I'm like, you're out there doing this in the elements and the rain and the cold. I'm here to support you, and I know that we wouldn't be able to do all those work without those volunteers. Get involved with that committee as well. They do great stuff. It's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of big events. And so I tell people this because I remember when I was at CTC, I volunteered for all the groups and everything that we had. And I look at it now, how it's grown CTC completely. And my volunteer work within the city of, my volunteer work with CTC got me wanting to volunteer for the city of Killeen. And I tell people that story because I was at CTC and I was a student and I just wanted to get involved with everything. And I started volunteering. And at that time, I was working at the library, and I loved the library. But how many of you ever been somewhere where you could do everything with your eyes closed? Then you know it's time to move on because you're no longer being challenged. And it was funny because I remember a position came over at Volunteer Services. And I had been at the library for many years. I loved what I did, but I literally could do the work with my eyes closed. I knew at that moment I wasn't being challenged. At that time, I was also a student at CTC, volunteering for everything that they had, getting involved with all the activities that they had going on. And my daughter was in Scouts, so I was volunteering as well. And so then someone said, my supervisor at the time told me, she goes, why don't you put in for the volunteer position? And I'm thinking to myself, man, I must be a bad employee. She's trying to get rid of me. And I was sad. I went home to my husband. I'm like, did I do something wrong? But I didn't understand at that moment because I was younger, and I didn't understand that she saw and she recognized that it was time for me to move on. I could do that job with my eyes closed, and I was no longer being challenged, and I had all these great ideas, but I knew that I had to have change in my life, and sometimes you have to grow. And so I knew, just like when I grew at CTC, and I was going here, I'll be honest, I went to CTC because my parents were like, you need to take some classes, and I wanted to take some classes. But once I got here, I realized I enjoyed learning, and I enjoyed learning and making new friends. And I was scared because at that time, I'm like, well, I'm an older student. In my mind, I wasn't that classic, just graduated high school. But then I came and I realized, boy, there's a lot of people that are my age around here. And so I enjoyed it, and I continue going to school, and I still go to school right now. And so that, for me, it was all that started when I was at CTC. And then I applied for that volunteer job, and I ended up getting it, and I started working with our youth. Our youth group that we have is our Youth Advisory Commission. Our Youth Advisory Commission is a wonderful group. Yes, they are. I love them. And they're a great group, and a lot of our students, when they leave YAC, they continue volunteering at CTC, and they get involved with the Rotaract, and there's another group I can't think off the top of my head, but they get involved in, so then they continue volunteering at CTC. Our Youth Advisory Commission, basically, I tell people it's a great way for students between the grades of 4th grade through 12th grade to volunteer. So those that have children or maybe have siblings that are that age, they can volunteer. The cool thing is, we know it's fun when you volunteer with family and friends, and so we encourage the moms or older siblings to volunteer with them. If you don't want to do that, we also understand we drop off, and that's okay. We're okay with that, because the main thing is the child is volunteering. So what we do is we have a staff representative, the YAC specialist that's assigned to these students. And what they do is they go find all the volunteer opportunities for the students. They find a lot, because last year alone, YAC volunteered within the community over 165 opportunities. That means they went out and gave back over 165 times. They don't ever tell anybody no, and I know that was my downfall, because sometimes I'm like, wait, we have 5 volunteer opportunities, but I love volunteering. Because the kids love it, because they learn, they network, they get to meet different individuals, they actually enjoy everything about volunteering. And it's great, because a lot of them, they're at that middle school, high school age, and they just don't see the importance sometimes. And by the time they get to high school, or when they get to college, and some of them are at CTC or just other universities, they call me and they're like, Miss Roxanne, I understand how important it was. I love it. I see now I got a scholarship because of that reason. And so we always encourage the students to volunteer. It's great work. It's a variety of tasks. And the parents love it because they don't have to call for their child, or the child doesn't have to call them for the volunteer opportunities. It's there available. So if you know any kids that are looking for volunteers for that program, that one, we understand how teens and the kids work. They have their meetings first and third Tuesday of each month at 7. It's from 7 to 8. I'm a parent myself, and so when I pick up my child, I want to know it's from one time frame to the other. And so we do it for 1 hour, and it lasts 1 hour. We don't go over. We may finish a little earlier, but we'll make it last for an hour, so it's convenient for the parents, so those that don't want to come, because the parents don't have to stay for the meetings. But it's an open application. A child can join all throughout the year. There's never like, well, you can only apply to this time, and we never turn a child away, because we want them out there volunteering and giving back. And they enjoy it and they love it. We also understand that they're involved with athletics and school and different activities. And so they'll come to us and say, hey, I'm not going to be as involved right now. I'm in band and it's football season, but you'll see me in January. We're okay with that. And that's what we tell people, and that's what you should do too when you volunteer. It's okay. Life happens. We understand that. Come back when life has changed. We're okay with that. Don't ever feel discouraged. Well, I haven't been around in a while and they haven't seen me and I don't want her to see me. Let me run this way so she don't see my face. It's okay. I have life. We all have life. The main thing is that when you do have that time, you're giving back, and that's what's important. The next committee that we have is Colleen Volunteer Corps. They're also in there. They meet on the first Monday of each month, and they actually meet at 5:30 to 6:30. So that's the only group that we have besides the YAC group that meets in the evenings. What does that group do? They're the link between the network, the nonprofits and the agencies and the volunteers. Basically, if somebody says, hey, we need some volunteers, we send it through that group, and then they send it out through their different tools that they have available, whether it's social media. CTC when y'all had Geek Fest, y'all said, hey, we need volunteers. We sent it and we put that information out, and that's what we do. We're here to help everybody, and it doesn't cost a thing. The other thing that group does, which is really, really cool and I enjoy, is how many of you ever heard of a community emergency response team? It's okay if you haven't. You have? Awesome. And so, do you know what it is? I'm putting you on the spot, I know, right? It's okay if you just heard. It's okay. A community, do you know? It's okay. A community emergency response team. How many of you remember when West occurred locally? Remember when they had that explosion? What happens is when you hear about these things, what do you want to do? You want to say, hey, let's collect items. Let's volunteer. Well, what happens is we actually need volunteers, but we also need some that are trained and have the certifications, and so that's what a community emergency response team is. Do y'all remember a couple of weeks ago when we had that gentleman that ran into the tanker trailer in front of Mickey's? Well, what happened was, I also, besides the volunteer, oversee the Clean Community Center. And so that building is also a shelter when emergencies occur. And so immediately we had to go into shelter operations for that building. First thing we call is our community emergency response team. These are volunteers that are trained for shelter operations. We provide all the trainings for shelter operations, CPR, first aid, and then they also will get specific training to be on a community emergency response team. They do the trainings at our local fire department. We coordinate that for them, and it's completely free. I tell people, when you're going to school and when you're trying to better yourself, take advantage of those free trainings. It's free and it doesn't cost you a thing. And anything else that you can put on your resume and just things that you've done and tried, it's great. I remember being at CTC and I took golf. Not that I wanted to, just because I could take it as a class and it counted for my PE credit. And then I learned and I loved it. So it's one of those things, like I tell people, take advantage of those opportunities. They meet, Killeen Volunteer Corps meets on the first Thursday of each month from 5:30 to 6:30, and then the Community Emergency Response Team meets right after from 6:30 to 7:30. So you can say, hey, I'd like to just get involved with this component. I honestly enjoy the Community Emergency Response Team because you learn so much and it's really cool. Like, I thought I knew how to hold a fire hose, but when have I ever really held a fire hose? And then I realized there's a technique. And then they teach you how to do the fire extinguisher. We learn how to do search and rescue operations, and you're in this big dark facility and you realize you really can't see anything. And so you want to learn and have that information and those tools should an emergency occur. Now, I'm not saying that we don't take volunteers when an emergency occurs, we do, but we do need those trained individuals that will help train the other volunteers on site. And we always have that training ongoing because you want to be prepared. You don't want an emergency to occur, but we're realists. They're going to happen, and so we're prepared for those when they do occur. And so that's another group that you can get involved with. And so I've told you about all of our groups: KBI, KKB, YAC, Celebrate Killeen, and Killeen Volunteer Corps. All of you have those information. She's going to pass out, it's another information. Killeen Volunteer Corps does volunteer training. We offer a volunteer etiquette class. During that class, we do them 4 times out of the year. We teach you volunteer etiquette. We also want to teach you the skills because unfortunately not everybody has them, and we're here to help you. Just how do you volunteer? What are things you do? Sometimes people don't realize a volunteer sometimes in some agencies is treated as a job. They expect you to be there on some levels, and that's what we explain to you, the difference in being a volunteer. Are you a volunteer for a board? I love Brian Sunshines, but he lets us know when he can't come because we expect that commitment, only because if he's not there, we don't have possibly a quorum. And so that's some of the stuff that we talk about at the volunteer etiquette. However, if you're going to volunteer for a waterway, which we talked about, you don't have to let me know if you're coming or not because we don't need you for a quorum. We'd love to have you there, but those are the things we teach you, like when you have to let the person know you're coming and when you don't have to let them know. When is it as a come and go event? And so those are the things that we teach you within that class. A thing that we're going to be looking for volunteers soon is HEB Feast of Sharing. How many of you ever volunteered for that? I love that. That is a really cool one. Volunteer applications go out for that November 1st. And so I tell people that every year, and then around November 15th, we get people right before Thanksgiving. Everyone's like, hey, I'd like to volunteer. It's already closed, and we hate turning people away. We look for 800 volunteers for that event. And I'm honest with you, the power of social media and the word of mouth, we get volunteers within 2 weeks from when it goes out. So I tell people, everyone uses calendars now, your phones, put it in your calendar, November 1st. It's going to be on our website, KilleenTexas.gov. And under there, like I said, search for volunteer services and just immediately turn it in. I tell people, if you're just on the fence, like maybe I want to volunteer for that, go ahead and just turn in an application. Because it's always easier to say, hey, I have plans, I can't do it, compared to trying to get in at the last minute and trying to juggle. Look for that. Our offices are in the Killeen Community Center on 2201 East Veterans Memorial Boulevard, and our number is 254-501-7878. Come in, give us a call. We have a Facebook page. Check out what we're doing. We do a lot of things, and if you're a part of a group or an agency and you need volunteers, just let us know. We're here to help you, and we don't charge you a thing. The main thing is Whether they're volunteering for a board or whether they're a volunteering event, the fact is that people are volunteering and we want to encourage them and give them the tools that they can be successful, okay? I thank all of you for having me this morning. Do y'all have any questions? Y'all are easy, no questions at all. Wow, I'm like, it's good, that's good. I encourage all of you to continue going to school, and like I said, CTC is one of the best campuses. So thank y'all again, y'all have a great one.
Okay, well, I just want to go ahead and say that I do apologize because I was supposed to bring up a PowerPoint presentation for Ms. Flores, but if it's okay with her, we can go ahead and still incorporate it into our video. Okay, cool. So we'll go ahead and get that later on. So I'm going to go ahead and move us on to the next meeting, next order of business, which is going to be a review of the minutes from our last meeting. So Deja, I'm going to have our acting secretary, and also our vice president, Ms. Deja Higgins, come up here and do a quick reading of them. Then we'll go ahead and take a vote on the approval. And yes, so I'll go ahead and give the floor to her.
Okay, so we have had 2 meetings previously. Our first meeting was on August 25th, and that was our officer and representative meeting. We basically went over the new SGA constitution that we had set up, all the powers that the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and parliamentarian are to uphold during the whole time that they are in that position. And we also briefly went over our financial committee that we are going to be starting, and also our events committee, which we will also be starting, and our upcoming events, which I will touch on later. And we also had a representative meeting yesterday where we did go over all the details of the events committee. I went over with the representatives that have shown up and told them that we need at least 4 members within each committee. The events committee, which will be headed by me, the vice president, helping set up events, times, locations, and things like that. And then also our financial committee, which will be headed by our treasurer and also myself, and also a minimum of 4 members. And then we went over our committee chairs, who will be the head of each of these committees, and we will hold Senate meetings that will involve myself, the president, and the other standing officers and committee chairs to discuss what these committees are talking about every time we have an executive board meeting. I briefly mentioned that Rotaract was doing their Boot Up Belize project, which was that they have donated used desktops with a minimum of like Windows XP and things like that. But we were going to get more information about that later because it doesn't start until 2017, and we're barely through September, so get back to that later. We also briefly talked about SGA elections, how today was the deadline, and we were going to be having the elections on the 13th through the 15th coming up next week, so I'm super excited about that. Join a Club Day. This is also going to be on the 13th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. For the clubs that are here, so we hope to see all of the clubs out there. It's going to be a fiesta theme, so yes. And then our SGA Spirit Night, which is coming up on September 19th. We are asking everybody to like broadcast this as much as possible to your groups, to your organizations, on your social media websites, because I know specific clubs have their own Facebook page. We are creating a Facebook event for it, and we will invite you, so if you could share that, we would love that. That'd be awesome. On your Instagram, if you want, invite friends, family, everybody. It's going to be at the Chick-fil-A in front of the Walmart on Lowe's Boulevard. And that concludes all the minutes that we had for our previous meetings. I'm going to turn it back over to our president, Kenneth.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Higgins, for being able to read that off for us. So I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. And not do that. So give me just a moment. I do apologize. So if I could go ahead and all those in favor, if you could go ahead and raise your hand and state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the minutes as stated, raise your hand and state nay. Motion is adopted as is unanimously. I'm going to go ahead and move us into the next order of business, which is going to be reports. So first up is going to be the presidential report. So I'm going to go ahead and follow off what our acting secretary told everyone. So there were a couple of executive decisions made. We decided to go ahead and allow the Rotaract Club to use the SGA office as a temporary, and we did get approval from our advisors on this. We're going to go ahead and allow the Rotaract to use the SGA office as a temporary drop-off point for their computers for their boot up Belize Drive. There's going to be a representative from Rotaract, which also would happen to be me, that'll come in and pick them up and take them to their final designated location. Additionally, let's see, we got, additionally, actually, I think that pretty much covers it from presidential report because there's not much that I've had to take an executive motion on. Otherwise, I think we've done a pretty good job of getting our board meetings up and going. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back to Ms. Higgins real quick for Vice President report and a report on the events committee.
Okay, so we pretty much have all the events that we're gonna have this semester already planned out. I'm not gonna read through all of them, but some of the major ones we have that I already mentioned: join the club day, September 13th, our spare night. On the 19th, we are doing our highway pickup. On the 24th, it's gonna be at 9 a.m., but we're gonna meet here at CTC and go from there. Our haunted house is gonna be from the 29th to the 31st here on campus. Super excited about that. We also, that's wrong note. Yes, and we also have our next meeting after this one, which is going to be on October the 7th in the same room here at 8 a.m. Those are all the major events and or meetings that we have coming up so far.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Higgins. So I'm going to go ahead. Now, our treasurer is absent, so as for our treasurer's report, unless any of our advisors want to go ahead and make a quick statement, no. Can I get a motion to go ahead and, from anyone to go ahead and skip the treasurer's report?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and I'm just going to say Deja seconds that. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and motion is unanimously approved. So I'm going to go ahead and if one of our advisors has anything they'd like to make a statement on, we can go ahead and hand it over. No? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and take us into new business. Old business. So there is not much in the way of old business since we only had two meetings of the Club Senate and Executive Board this semester. We managed to resolve everything that we needed to get taken care of. So I want to take the time to give everyone a quick reminder that our logo contest will be from the 19th to the 23rd. If you have anyone if you yourself are a graphic designer or know anyone that's good at graphic design, this will be a great opportunity to get your work promoted because we will get a new design for SGA for a logo that we can use on t-shirts, we can get a banner for, we can put on the flyers and material. So the rules and all the information we will have, I'm not going to give an exact date, but hopefully we'll have it posted online within a week. Otherwise, you can always contact the SGA office or email us at ctcd.edu. So look for that coming up. If you know anyone that's good at that, it's a good idea. Election dates, if you are running, will be from the 13th to the 15th. So you can always, so that's going to be next next Tuesday to Thursday. So if you are planning on running, I would go ahead and talk with Student Life as soon as you get the chance to about what what the dimensions for posters and campaign and how you can and what you can do to campaign. Also, the deadline for election filing is going to be basically at the end of this meeting. So if you have it with you, please feel free to turn it at the end of this meeting, excuse me. And I do want to follow up back on the President's report because I did forget to mention something. If you are interested in signing up for a committee, I have to make the appointments. So the way we're going to make this easier is that if you're a member of SGA or want to be a member of SGA and want to get on either the events committee or the financial affairs committee, the sign-up sheets are going to be located inside the SGA mailbox, which is right on the desk here in the student lounge. Just go ahead and write down your name and information, and within a week or so, I'll just kind of put my signature on it. We'll get your contact list updated, and you guys will be set. So that's pretty much it for old business, unless anyone else had anything they wanted to add. No? Okay. So new business, and I promise I will try to get through this as quickly as possible. We did go ahead and create a new constitution. We kind of used, we decided to go ahead and update it. It's been sent out to everyone. And so I'll just do a quick reading of it so we can go ahead and take a vote on it. So, quick Robert's Rules reminder. If you're, excuse me, quick Robert's Rules reminder. The only three motions we'll really need on this are going to be a point of information and a point of order. So if there's anything that you would like me to elaborate or clarify on, just raise your hand, say a point of information. Otherwise, a point of order is if we want to make an amendment, and or if there's something you feel that we should redact or anything, or if you want us to go into, we'll cross that out. We'll go ahead and try to get the motion to get this approved at the end of this reading, and then we'll go ahead and, of course, if our advisors have any changes or recommendations they want to make, we can do it as an as-needed basis, and then we'll go ahead and let the rest of our members know via email before we submit the Constitution for approval by the Student Life Department. We'll get just a moment. So, of course, on the first page, if you do have a copy, you'll find a preamble. Pretty standard stuff. We'll go straight into Article 1, which describes the SGA. The membership is going to be all half, which basically includes most everyone. It's going to be all half-time, three-quarter time, and full-time students duly enrolled at CTC. Our purpose, of course, is to foster a sense of community, promote the interests of student life, promote scholarship, citizenship to the community and to the college and local community, develop leadership, and to also govern all recognized clubs and organizations, make recommendations on matters proposed by students, administrators, and staff. The rules are governing our body are going to be Robert's Rules of Order, the latest edition of which specifically. So unless they're inconsistent with what's described in the Constitution and bylaws, we're going with Robert's Rules of Order, how to govern everything. We're going to be divided into three main branches. It's going to be the Executive Board, the Club Senate, and the General Assembly, which is this right now. The Executive Board, all executive powers will be invested within the Executive Board. Primary charge of President is the timely implementation of all legislation enacted by the General Assembly. Chief Executive shall be me, the President. If I'm unable or unwilling to assume office or continue serving in office, of course, that duty will fall to the Vice President. The Vice President is not willing or able to serve, then a special election will have to be held. That's all in the election code as well in the student life document. And I just want to say I do apologize for not, it's a pretty big thing, so it's you should all have this in an email if you want to go over it. A lot of paper that would be used then, so. So the Executive Board is going to consist of the following members: President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, Parliamentarian, the sponsor as an ex officio member, and all the co-sponsors as an ex officio member. Duties and powers are pretty self-explanatory. For the President to represent the student body. Of course, all our executive members should have to protect, defend, and uphold the SGA Constitution. Attend at all meetings of the Executive Board, Club Senate, and General Assembly. Serve as a chair for the Executive Board and the General Assembly, and also set the agenda for it. So I have one vote in the Executive Board and General Assembly in the event of a tie. Otherwise, I'm a non-voting member. And I have to execute all legislation within a timely manner from the General Assembly. And of course, I will have to co-sign or veto any legislation passed by the General Assembly within 5 class days. Otherwise, it's going straight to my signing and the sponsor, and the sponsor takes the final action on it if I take no action on it. But that shouldn't be an issue. All right. Also, coordinate, maintain between the SGA and, of course, the sponsors and co-sponsors. Serve in any other executive role as necessary. Of course, I make appointments as necessary. Serve as an ex officio member on all committees, and of course we must conduct regular meetings of the Club Senate and General Assembly. Hopefully this will never happen, but call special meetings, coordinate with the sponsor on the scheduling of training and leadership programs, which shouldn't come up since of course that's taken care of by student life already, but usually that should refer to refreshers on Robert's Rules of Order for most of the information. If you're a club rep, you would have received an email last night about a video about Robert's Rules of Order. So I don't know if anyone's had the chance to view that, so that's a very good introduction on that. Vice President is pretty much the same as the President. The only difference is that he or she will chair and preside over all standing committees unless otherwise noted. And also you serve as an ex officio member on everything. You help fill unexpected vacancies during the year, of course, and this applies to all officers as well. Serve office hours as determined by the sponsor. The secretary, and of course as well, will be available online, is to protect, defend, and uphold the Constitution. There we're going to be responsible mainly for office management and correspondence concerning the executive board and of course all functions of the SGA. They have to attend all the meetings, and they have to maintain a record of the SGA's activities throughout the year. So they'll also be responsible for distributing minutes and basically taking care of most of the secretarial work. That's what their roles can be consist of. Treasurer is also pretty self-explanatory. They're going to chair the Financial Affairs Committee. They're going to go sign monetary transactions and everything. And basically they'll be responsible for finances and chair the Financial Affairs Committee. Parliamentarian, their job is essentially to know Robert's rules and keep the meeting in order. And of course the sponsor, all their information is stated within the Student Life Handbook, so all that's pretty redundant. And of course as co-sponsors, their duties are also stated in the Student Life Handbook, and they'll essentially serve in the role of the sponsor at his or her behest. So big one is executive decisions are reserved for instances when it is not practical to call the General Assembly or Constitution is vague and does not clearly instruct the executive board on appropriate action. Essentially, if there's nothing detailed about it, and if we need to, as the executive board, take a decision on it, like with the boot up Belize drive, we'll inform you guys on it and we'll go ahead and take a vote on it. And I believe we did that at the last Club Senate meeting. That kind of covers it for the executive board. If anyone has any questions, again, you can always bring it up in any moment. The Club Senate, basically, it's everyone, it's a representative for their club, attends these meetings, and we deal with stuff that it covers basically exclusively relating to organizations, like a single organization or all organizations on campus. But if it applies to the student body, it's got to be referred to us. You guys can draft legislation, but if you want to take a vote on it, of course, it has to be referred to, like the full meeting here today. So membership eligibility. General Assembly is basically going to be the same thing. Now this some most likely will take place later on, but if possible, we'd like to go ahead and try to add a representative for on-campus students, as well as 2 at-large senators, and they can come and at the moment just come and join us on an at-needed basis. If anyone's interested, just talk to the sponsor, and they will be appointed by them. Excuse me. I do apologize. Of course, if I do end up vetoing anything, or any president ends up vetoing anything, you guys have the opportunity to override that at the very next meeting. So of course, I will take a 2/3 majority vote. I don't think that's ever going to come up though. Duties and powers of senators, they have to represent the views of their constituents, make opportunities available for their constituents to share ideas and viewpoints, of course protect the Constitution, serve on at least 1 committee, and that of course applies to club representatives as well. Attend meetings of the General Assembly, introduce and sponsor legislation as necessary, vote on legislation, present to the General Assembly, help approve the budget, override vetoes, and of course all the information for regular meetings is on here, and everyone should be aware of that by now. Legislation, we have basically 2 types of things: resolutions and bills. Resolutions require that it's just a statement we make. A bill is an actual, we are going to take action on this. Most of the legislation that will go through us will be resolutions. So because it's going to be there's not much we can apply towards a bill unless it applies basically to SGA. Like SGA will do this. committees and appointments. Of course, there'll be ad hoc committees that can be done as necessary. Standing committees are the Events and Financial Affairs Committee. Events Committee is in charge of all the events. Financial Affairs helps manage the budget, determine the budget, tells us how much money, and basically assists the treasurer. Committee chair duties are pretty self-explanatory. They set the time, place, date, and agenda. They also report to the club senate, and they submit regular written reports. Removal from office, essentially keep your grades up. Don't do anything that's going to get you suspended. You know, follow the rules. You have to send a letter of resignation with the time of the effective date of resignation. Impeachment. Basically, you have to do something really bad, like go confront someone publicly. You know, you'd have to go out of your way to get impeached. And it's neglect of duties, intentional breach of the Constitution and/or bylaws, actions that reflect negatively on SGA or CTC, and essentially that all gets handled through the sponsor and co-sponsor as well. Bylaws basically gives the power for the bylaws to be used. Amendments are going to be made on an as-needed basis, and they must go through the General Assembly. Necessary minor changes to the Constitution can be done by the Executive Board or by the sponsor and do not need to be approved by the General Assembly. So like I said, any edits that need to come up for our sponsors will get taken care of as they're available to do it, and we'll let you guys know before we get the paperwork filed in, which I believe is, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be the 3rd or 4th week of this month. Is the deadline for that? Around the officer training time, right?
For the sponsor paperwork?
Yeah, like the sponsor paperwork and the Constitution stuff.
Yeah, all of that, yeah, they should be around that time.
Okay. Bylaws
I
and
think it's
procedures.
the beginning of October that it's officially, but everybody should be working on that already.
So I mean, we should be clear with that for SGA. Bylaws, of course, authority is on there. It states that the powers of authority is Article 1. Everyone should have a copy of this. Qualifications, basically, it was what was presented to you if you're running as an officer or if you were selected as a club rep. You know, you have to have the 2.5 or 3.0 GPA depending on your office, be enrolled at least half-time. So it goes into detail for executive officers. Senators, same thing, basically 2.5 be elected or be appointed by your club. Attendance rules. It's going to be very hard to get in on excused absence. I mean, it would be super hard, basically, just as long as you give us notification that you can't make it, and ahead of time, or even if you give us notification afterwards saying there was an emergency, you know, it's excused absence. I mean, it is very lenient with the absences. You basically like have to disappear off the face of the earth to get an excused absence. So. And of course, if you do get 3, then we have to notify your club, and you'll be on probation, and we'll have to select your alternate. So legislation guidelines are in here as well. Essentially, it's pretty standard stuff at this point. We're just in the procedures manual. There's going to be a first reading, a second reading, and final action. First reading will be when the bill is introduced at one meeting. Then we'll go over and do a reading of it. There'll be a quick debate on it. We'll take action on amendments as necessary. Then at the next meeting will be the second reading, and there'll be the vote whether or not we want to actually take action on it. Bill format is also within here, and it'll also be online for anyone that needs it. And same thing for resolution format. Of course, it also clarifies, again, the difference between a bill and a resolution. And that pretty much takes care of everything. So if anyone have a point of order or clarification on any part that they would like me to go ahead and bring up? No? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Can I get a motion from someone else to adopt the Constitution? Okay, would anyone like to second it? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please raise your hand and state nay. Okay, the motion is approved and the Constitution is unanimously adopted. Of course, changes as necessary will continue to be made. Now I'm going to go ahead and give it to an open forum. Does anyone have anything from any club or any other situation that they'd like to bring up? Anything that requires SGA's attention? No? Okay, all right. So if I could get a motion to adjourn, that will conclude our meeting for this month. Okay, would anybody like to second that? Okay, so Jesus seconds. All right, all those in favor, Raise your hand, say aye. Okay, motion is unanimously approved, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate your time. Again, thank you for Student Life and letting us use the room.